I've entitled my sermon, Sleeping in a Position of Responsibility. I'm not sure what comes into your mind when you hear the word sleeping in a position of responsibility. I want you to imagine yourself somewhere where you are supposed to be doing something and you happen to be asleep instead of doing that something. And I'm interested in this because it is coming directly from the Bible. And I've given you deliberately this so that you can keep the sermon for the rest of your lives. I've started believing very strongly that it's always good that I know that people will always say, oh, it was a beautiful sermon. What did you talk about? I don't remember, but it was a good sermon. And I've listened to that many times. But now we are saying we want to be able to come back to this. So, God had what was called a theocracy. He was ruling the children of Israel through the prophet Samuel. God was the king. God was the one in charge. The children of Israel, they complained and they say, no, we want to be like these around us. Now, they wanted to be like the other nations. So they cried unto God. And I'm not sure why God gave in, because one would have expected God, being a God of absoluteness, would have refused and said, this is the order, let it go. But him being a God that considers and that expects us to be able to appreciate who he is, he says to them, okay, we will choose for you a king. And when God looks on the children of Israel, the only one suitable to be king was none other than Saul. It is said that he was a very tall and handsome man. I mean, when they talk about the handsomeness, then you begin to say, to the extent where we talk about someone being handsome countrywide, he definitely must have been very handsome. But well, handsome is relative. He should have been here with me and we tried to say who was handsome. But unfortunately, he's not here, so we'll never be able to compare between me and him. For I know that I was made in the image of God, so I definitely am handsome. Amen. Now, let's go to 1 Samuel 26, verse 6 to 17. I'll browse through that very quickly, but I've got the text for you. You can be able to look at that and give comments as we come back to that after reading through. Write the notes you want to write there. David then asked, okay, then what happens with Saul? Saul rules for a number of years, but because of power, absolute power corrupts absolutely. He started disobeying the very God who had installed him. And then eventually he goes to the extreme end where God says, destroy everything that you have conquered. And he destroys everything but leaves something. The word everything means everything. The word all means don't leave anything. But what did he do? He served the beautiful women that were amongst the Philistines. And he went on to take the fattened calves. And he brought the calves. When he comes back to the kingdom, he has got a very good explanation, a very good reason. No, you see, they are fattening the calves because I want to offer offerings to the Lord. Beloved, I want to say to you, one of the biggest problems we have had in our church is we have seen other things better than what God has said. We have come up with our own explanations. We have been able to say, God says, but. And I want to say to you that God is a God of absoluteness. There is no time for buts. If he says thou shalt not, it's a thou shalt not. But the soul went against God, and soon after, God withdraws from him. Samuel dies. That's not the focus here. The focus now is, finally, someone has been nominated to take the place of Saul. And what does Saul do? He has got to make sure that he kills this person who is going to be the next king. Why is it so? We find it in politics with all the guys that they don't like opposition. If you are in opposition and you don't play your cards well, you will be in the grave in a shorter time than you would want to think. So it is not starting with the politicians you know today, it starts right back there. There is something about power that is very disturbing. And what disturbs me the most is this power has been imported into church and has been abused in church. Where at a time when we were supposed to follow a specific instruction coming from God, we have said, no, we are going to but. And it is only the goats that butt, sheep never butt. And Christ says, my sheep hear my voice and they follow me. So if we have got any butts, that means in as much as we might be looking like sheep, we are actually not living like sheep. We are butts. Then let's come to this text now. He is now pursuing David. He wants to kill David. What is in his mind is, if I kill David, then I've got no competition. As if to say, there would be no other people in Israel that God would choose. That is how very myopic, how short-sighted he was. Now you see, no, let me remove this one. And I want to say, I dare say to you, you sit with this in the church many times, whether it is election time and what have you, you've always been involved in these small little things. The devil has a way of destabilizing the church, and the devil had a way of destabilizing Saul, until Saul was drifted away from his own God, and instead he spent half his ruling time chasing after the life of an innocent David. Why are you chasing after David? He had no reason. And on numerous occasions, David explains this to him. Then there comes a time when he is chasing after David, and then I like the Bible, the way the Bible puts it. He went into the cave to relieve himself. Now, I don't understand what kind of robe he was putting on. David crawls to the place where the king was, and he cuts off a piece of the robe. And then he goes back. When the king is done and is out of the cave, David shouts and he says, "Oh, King Saul, why are you looking for me? If I wanted to kill you, check on your robe and see whether your robe is still intact." He looks and, oh, there's a piece that has been cut off. And he says, "No, my son, it is not going to be." He goes back home. A few weeks later, he's on the run again looking for David. There is something demonic about being in power, and there's something demonic about having left God. And unfortunately, we have had leadership sitting in church when they are not of the church. And Saul is a typical example of one that is in the church, in the kingdom, but not for the kingdom. Whilst he claimed to have the anointment that had come from God, he had already gone away from the blessings that God had given. In context into this. So this is the second round where David should have killed Saul. When David was asked, "Why didn't you kill Saul?" he says, "Look, I'm not going to hurt the anointed of the Lord." What he is saying is where God has put his blessings, that thing remains as such. There is no changing, there is no altering, it is going to stay as it is. And now with that, therefore, the second round around here, this is what we are going to be reading of. Don't forget, the title of our sermon is Sleeping in a Position of Responsibility. The Bible says here, if you go to 1 Samuel 26, verse 6 to 17, David then asked Ahimelech, okay, let me explain. Saul is after David again one more time. And they were told that he was in Jehoshaphat, and they went all over until finally they got somewhere around that place. This is the king of Israel, who is supposed to spend time in the palace ruling. What does he do? He takes a spear, he takes whatever he has got, he even has a jug of water to make sure that in the heat of the Middle East he will be able to survive. And he is literally running around. He possibly is saying to himself, "I would want to thrust the spear myself into David." And then they are tired and they come to rest. So when they were there, David now spots where they are. And David and his friends, they start a conversation. That's where we are now. Remember, we are talking about people sleeping in a position of responsibility. David then asked Ahimelech the Hittite and Abishai, son of Zeruiah, Job's brother, "Who will go down into the camp with me to Saul?" And I'm surprised that there is this sudden willingness. These guys really wanted to be with David. He knows there are 3,000 soldiers that are sleeping in there. There are 3,000 soldiers that are surrounding Saul, King Saul. And yet he wants to go in there. "Oh, David, what are you looking for? Why are you going there?" And funny enough, one of his aides says to him immediately, "No, I want to go with you." And then so Abishai says, "I will go." When you go to the next verse 7, it says, "So David and Abishai went to the army by night, and there was Saul, lying asleep inside the camp with his spear stuck in the ground near his head. Abner and the soldiers were lying around him. Abner was the chief commander, was the man, the reliable man, the man who was responsible for protecting the king. When the army was called to action, it was Abner who was called to decide on what to do. It was Abner who decided when they went out, in what strength, what did they do. He is the man who was the closest to the king, and he was the most trusted. And everybody in Israel knew one thing, that after Saul, there is Abner. So Abner, the two most powerful people in the kingdom, they take the pain to go together to look for this small little boy called David. When madness takes over you, you have never seen any more senselessness than that. But here they are looking for this David. Why are you afraid of David? Why do you want to kill David? Who put you in the position? It was God. If it is God who put you in the position, why will God not protect you? The only reason why God is not protecting you, Saul, is because you went against your own God. You disobeyed the command. And beloved, let us be very careful ourselves as believers. We might continue to come and be part of the church when we have been deserted by God. It is not in the fashion, the tradition, the practice of coming to church regularly that our Christianity becomes. Staying away is no indication of righteousness either. Paul says in Hebrews 10 verse 25, not forgetting to come together as has become the habit with others. And Peter says, come and exhort ye one another. So we are supposed to be coming. But I'm saying coming is not a guarantee that you are still in the camp. And you might not be in the camp today. And my appeal to you is come back to the fold. God is a God of second chances. He will give you an opportunity to come again. So David and Abishai went to the army by night, and there was Saul lying asleep inside the camp with his spear stuck in the ground near his head, and Abner and the soldiers were lying around him. Here is King Saul, fast asleep, poor King Saul. Instead of sleeping in the beautiful bed in the palace, he is sleeping here because he's hunting for this small little man called David. But he's tired and exhausted. Next to him is the spear that he expects is going to thrust into David. So next to him is the spear. And he is lying there, most probably snoring. You can imagine with the tiredness. And I can imagine when they came to the camp, there was a chorus there. It was like there were frogs surrounded with all the snoring around him. So they come in there, and most probably the snoring gave them the cover which made their walking in not be heard. Why? There was noise already. And I'm saying too many times when we are penetrated in our Christianity in this church, we don't realize, we don't understand it because there's too much of snoring already. We are already in total disarray. So when evil things or untraditional things come into the church, we don't realize that. Why? Because we are in a deep slumber, snoring. Snoring becomes the cover that covers the enemy when they come in. And David gets there. If you go to verse 8, it says, Abishai said to David, today God has delivered your enemy into your hands. Now let me pin him into the ground with one thrust of the spear. I won't strike him twice. Look, I'm telling you, if I was David with all the running around that he was doing, I would have said, well, it's you who's doing it, it's not me. So you do it. As long as he's pinned to the ground. Because Abishai says, look, one thrust, I don't want two. I take one and it's final. Then you would have said, well, yeah, but so that he can quickly come to the kingdom. But oh, beloved, God has got his own plan and his own time. God is never late for anything. That's why he arrives without departing. God is never late for anything. That's why he is God. He is the ultimate. He is the omniscient. And David recognized this, and he was not in any rush for anything. And he said to Abishai, please don't, because he still is the anointed of the Lord. So regardless of the circumstances, the problem that Saul had with God, David continued to consider the anointment that was put on Saul as sacred. And it doesn't matter the disagreements you have got in your church. It doesn't matter the fights that you have got. Where God has anointed, the anointment sticks forever. And I know many times then we begin to castigate and we shout and we do the rest of the things. It doesn't matter what we say. David here says, this one is the anointed of the Lord and I shall not touch him. He said, no, don't touch him. Listen to what he says there. He says, So I said, don't destroy him. Who can lay a hand on the Lord's anointed and be guiltless? As surely as the Lord lives, he said, the Lord himself will strike him, or his time will come and he will die, or he will go into battle and perish. But the Lord forbid that I should lay a hand on the Lord's anointed. Now get the spear and water jug that are near his head, and let's go. No, don't worry, don't destroy him. But this is the spear that he wants to use to destroy me. Let's take the spear with us. And this is the jug of water that he has got, which is helping him have more strength because it is hot here, he's not dehydrated. Let's take this with us. And they check that, and in the midst of that snoring and everything that is going on, they tiptoe and they walk out of the camp. And they go a distance from the camp, and the next part of the text says, so David took the spear and the water jug near Saul's head, and they left. No one saw or knew about it, nor did anyone wake up. What kind of sleep is this? These are the men, the bodyguards, the people who are supposed to protect the king, sleeping so much such that the enemy tiptoes in, does what? I can imagine David and whatever, definitely they must, okay, they were not maybe talking loudly, but they must have whispered. And if they were whispering, they're so close to the ears of all these guys that were sleeping here. Someone should have woken up, but they're in a deep slumber. Two things are possible. They were too tired, and so they could not even respond to anything. That's a likelihood. And I want to say, I hope this church is not too tired to the extent where when the church is infiltrated by things from outside, if the church is infiltrated by strange fires being lit in here, I hope and pray that we are not too much in a deep slumber for us not to even hear or acknowledge it. And that's exactly what we have done, and many times we've allowed many things into the church for one simple reason. We did not know what was happening because we were in a deep slumber. Why were we in a deep slumber? We have been running around all over for wrong things. We are focusing on wrong things. We are majoring on minors. At a time when we are supposed to focus on that which God has given us to do, his instruction, the last words from the master, simple and straightforward, go ye therefore. And instead of us listening to the go ye therefore, we have brought ourselves into small little committees, and we've got small little entertainment programs, and we have got a lot of these small little things that we do. We entertain ourselves and we become very busy doing things that have got nothing to do with our business. The business of this church is not to run around and entertain and do entertainment. The business of this church is to reach out and hasten the coming of the Lord. That's why Christ says in Matthew 24 verse 14, and the gospel of the kingdom should be preached to all the world so that the end must come. Oh soul, why can't you hear what is happening? Oh, I'm very tired. Why are you tired? I'm running after David. What's wrong with David? I don't know, but I'm running after David. How many Davids have we been chasing around here? How many Davids are we seeking after? How many people we've got nothing to do with our business that we are busy trying to hunt down at a time when we are supposed to measure on our measures? We are focusing on minors. Things that have got nothing to do with our destiny. So David took the spear and water jug near Saul's head, and they left. If you go to 13, then David crossed over to the other side and stood on top of the hill some distance away. There was a wide space between them. He called out to the army and to Abner, son of Ner, aren't you going to answer me, Abner? I don't know how loud a voice David had. Because remember, he tiptoes into the camp. They whisper to each other in the camp. Like I said, I did not say it in the Bible that they were snoring. I'm imagining because I know what happens to the person that is sleeping. Faster sleep after you're so tired. And they must have been sleeping in all funny positions and some in different whatever. And with all that, they are in total disarray. And yet he goes a distance away from them and he calls and they wake up. Hallelujah. Amen. I don't know. I only can say most probably God allowed it to be. But what I know is they were in a deep slumber. What concerns me is, why are you so tired? 3,000 soldiers, too tired to protect the king of Israel, the anointed of the Lord. What are you doing? Then it says here, then David, verse 15, and David said, you are a man, aren't you? and who is like you in Israel? Why didn't you guard your Lord the king? Someone came to destroy your Lord the king. What you have done is not good. And I'm saying to you, that is where the theme of the sermon is. The theme is saying, here is a man in a position of responsibility who is fast asleep. And I want to change that and put it into another context and say responsibility to go out with God's word, which is in a deep slumber. This church is catapulted into a small little organization where we are always pleasing each other and entertaining one another, and we have forgotten the mission for which this church is. It was Ellen White who says in testimony, she says she saw the church went into a state of stagnance. The church is in deep slumber. The church is fast asleep. The church is snoring in deep slumber. The people in the church, when I say the church, I mean the people in the church. And meanwhile, what is happening to the anointed of the Lord? And meanwhile, what is happening to the institution that God put in place for the very purpose for which we exist? Everybody is in a deep slumber, and we continuously get people coming from all corners and destroying us. We are the bodyguards that are supposed to keep this church. And as long as the bodyguards of this church are in a deep slumber, King Saul is in danger. And this anointed of the Lord, this church, which from the very beginning of time it was said, if you go to Revelation 10 and Revelation 19, it was said, take it, you eat it, it will be sweet, it comes out, and go and prophesy again. And that instruction was given to this church. And yet when this church is supposed to go and prophesy again, and when this church is supposed to take the mantle of the three angels' messages and run with it and do what we are supposed to do, this church is in a deep slumber, snoring whilst the enemy is creeping. And as a result, we have got all sorts of the new beliefs that we have got. We spend half the time fighting about ordination of women. We spend time talking about whether or not, gays are supposed to be whatever in the church. To the extent where the General Conference has got to deliberate on issues of matter of policy that is engroined in the Bible, for which we don't need no debate. That's how far we have gone. We are running around looking for devils, trying to destroy the small little good things in the church, busy trying to destroy that so that we can stay in our stagnated state. And David says here, what you are doing, what you have done is not good. And I'm saying you and me are sitting here as bodyguards. We have not done what we are supposed to be doing. Why? Because we are sleeping in positions of responsibility. Our responsibility is to take the message forward. Our responsibility is to knock on every door. Our responsibility is to go ye therefore. Christ says, go ye, not to call them in. And what we do, we spend time distributing small little papers, and then we say, these people don't want to be called in. How do they come into a place where the church itself has not been protected because the bodyguards are in deep slumber? How does it? It was Mahatma Gandhi who said, if only there were 8 Christians in Delhi, they would convert the whole of India. He's looking at a city with 8 million people, and he says, if we had only 8 Christians here, and he says the greatest enemy for Christians is Christians themselves. Why? Because they don't know what they believe in, they say what they don't believe in. And I'm saying that is the biggest problem we have got, and because we are sleeping in positions of responsibility, that's where we are. I decided that I should give you a little bit of a hint for you to understand the function of a bodyguard and relate that to what we are supposed to do. If you go on to where it says that someone sleeping in a position of responsibility, the back part tells you about what is expected of a bodyguard. A bodyguard, it starts from the first part. The bodyguard, a close protection officer, is a security guard or officer or soldier who protects a person. So the bodyguard is supposed to protect the other person or institution, whatever it is. And they've got to protect it with their lives. I remember when Nasser was shot in Egypt, actually 2 of the bodyguards died with him because they tried to shield him from the bullets that were being hailed on him. And I wonder how many of us would die with the church for the sake of maintaining the dignity of this church. Or the bulk of us will rescind and leave it like that. Why? Because all of us are in a deep slumber, sleeping in a position of responsibility. Then it says this person protects high-ranking public officials or officers, wealthy people and celebrities from, all right, you protect them from danger. Then I say to you, this church is in danger of adulteration. At a time when we are supposed to be evangelizing the world, we have been secularized by the world. At a time when we are supposed to shine and glow and show the world what Christ is like, we have been socialized into the world. And because we have been socialized into the world, we spend all our time discussing issues to do with the socialization of the church instead of the destiny of the church. What are we doing? We are slipping in positions of responsibility. And the church is in danger now because nobody is protecting the church. And we end up with all these small little problems we have got. We have generally theft. The gospel of this church has been stolen. I want you to look and see on the television the things, what these guys with small little movements on, this born-again movements and everything. They are masquerading as Christians everywhere and all over. People are even going to Nigeria and dying in Nigeria because they are looking for God when there is a Seventh-day Adventist church in this country. What God are they looking for if we are the remnant church? What good are they looking for? It says something to us, beloved. It says to us that we are in a deep slumber. We are not doing what we are supposed to be doing. Hence, they go out to look for God. If ever we did, and if ever we were, and if ever we represented this church as it is supposed to, we would have been in a different mood. And I bet you, if you go down this street, you might even be surprised to find that there are people who don't even know the correct name of this church. I went to preach in Weinberg one day, and when I got to the street, I decided to carry out my own research. So I talked to 29 people in the vicinity. Of the 29 people, only 2 people had an idea, and both of them called it 7 adventurers. They couldn't even say Seventh-day Adventists. And that church has been there for 42 years. And in 42 years, they don't know anything about that church. And yet this is the church that God said, "Go ye therefore and preach the gospel." This is the church that it said in Revelation, "I saw another angel flying in the midst of heaven." What is happening with us? The church is in deep slumber. We are sleeping in positions of responsibility. I don't know whether you would claim that in Salt River you have actually knocked on every door and they know that there's a Christ that is coming. I'll be surprised if that is what we have done. What do we do here? We come and we socialize and we talk about Mufakose and Soko and, where are you? And, we have got another home away from home. We were chosen by God with one purpose in mind. We were brought to this church with one purpose in mind. Ellen White says in the book Christian Service, she says we are saved to serve. And until we do that, and she says she also, when she was shown finally what is happening in heaven, there is no single soul who managed to go to heaven who had no star on their crown. Why? Because everyone who has been saved is going to save someone. What are we doing as a church? Sleeping in positions of responsibility. Doesn't matter how much we entertain ourselves, there's one difficult thing about God. He is so absolute that regardless, He will find it okay to save 80 people from the whole world from the flood and save only 3 people from Sodom and Gomorrah, a city with more than 5 million people. He will find it okay. Why? Because He believes in purity. And it is only those that do His will. God is not involved in what you call the majority votes. No, He's not. He believes in quality. And assault. The church has been assaulted. We have been compromised in many ways. The way we dress now, the way we conduct many things, we have been assaulted. And where are the bodyguards? Because the bodyguards are supposed to protect the church from this. Where are the bodyguards? Why? They are in a deep slumber, sleeping in positions of responsibility. Sometime it has been kidnapped and we have been assassinated. The church is almost dead as it is. It is almost dead as it is. You hear more about these Pentecostal movements and the rest of these guys and the money making. In fact, they've come up with something that makes me think that they think a church is a casino. You go there, you gamble, and then you make what you want to make. They are distorting the image of God. And the end result is it will be difficult for us to carry a message much later because they will have been destroyed by what they are reading now. Why are they in that situation now? Because this church is sleeping in a position of responsibility. I don't know whether you know that last week this church became 100 years old. Are you aware of that? Yes. This building, 100 years old last week. And I'm saying, in 100 years, what have you done at Salt River? It should be a challenge and something that should come to ourselves and we say to ourselves, in all earnest, what are we doing here? Who are we? What are we doing? And what is the purpose of us being here? And it was Solomon who says, where there is no vision, the people perish. And I will tell you, if you have got no dreams, then there's something wrong with you. It was Muhammad, the prophet of Islam, who said, it's only dead people who cannot dream. Why can't we dream and change things around and bring this church to be what it is supposed to be? Why can't we dream and do that which God has asked us to do? In fact, the best part about it is he says, I will be with you even unto the end. What is our fear? He will be with us even unto the end. Church, why are we sleeping when we are in positions of responsibility? We can go down there, we have been harassed, there's harassment, we have lost confidence in ourselves, the threats on the church, and the other criminal offenses and everything that are coming in the church, and I say popular misconceptions, the bodyguards need to be observant. Are you observant about what you're supposed to be doing? To be physically fit with good eyesight. I'm talking of spiritual, physical fitness. I'm saying we're supposed to be spiritually fit. We're supposed to be spiritually stable. And that is where reading comes in. That is where literature, evangelism comes in. We are supposed to feed ourselves with the right stuff. If we are going to run a race, we need to exercise. If we are going to run a race, we need to practice what we are going to be doing. And there is no other way except if we get on to do our literature. What are we doing in this church? We're in a deep slumber, sleeping in a position of responsibility. There is no way we'll be able to give anything out to the world that we don't have. You only give what you have. You can't give what you have, what you don't have. Go down there, say we need to retain their focus on the job. We are supposed to put our focus on the mission of this church. The bodyguard will fight and avoid fatigue. We are too fatigued. We are not doing anything. Evangelism to us is now an event, not a process. It is no longer the nature of the church. It is done once in a while for record purposes. We don't even look at potentially dangerous things that we get involved in the church. To remain calm under pressure. We erupt very easily in the church amongst each other. There is no calmness. Why? Because the church is in a deep slumber. Bodyguards are supposed to collaborate protection with other security forces. We are supposed to be collaborating as churches nearby, organizing, trying to make sure that we reach out to all the places that we have got with anyone outside. And we should have adequate training. Again, training is something that you go for yourself. It's not about the afternoon program that you want to think about. It is about you on your own, meditating and reading and getting yourself to talk directly to the Lord, that you may be edified. Until and unless we do that, we continue to be in a state of slumber. I am saying, why are we sleeping when we are in positions of responsibility? This whole place will die because of us. And it was in Jeremiah 18, I think, where God says, if the sinner dies when they are not rebuked, their sin will be asked upon your head. And as you're sitting here, this place that you are living in around here, the sinners who are going to die here, they're going to be asked on your head. Why? Because you had a gospel commission that you did not respond to. Why? You had a nice time. You ran around for everything else except for one thing. You became too fatigued to do what God wanted you to do. God wants us to have specific skills that we can have. God wants us to be the bodyguards, protecting this church. And how do we protect this church? We protect this church by walking tall, by being ourselves, by doing the right things. We protect this church by telling the world about ourselves. Why are we apologetic about being ourselves? There is a serious problem with us. I'm sure we have not qualified to be the bodyguards for the church. So we continuously have a problem. Hence Saul is all by himself. And David can tiptoe and come and get the spear. Why? Because what we are doing is not right. Whatever we are doing, whatever it is, we are sleeping in positions of responsibility. I'm not sure exactly what we would want to be. I'm not sure exactly what we want to talk about and say at any time. But there's one thing that I'm sure about, that we are not being what we are supposed to be. And beloved, the call comes to you as an individual. The call comes to you as an individual in as much as you want the church to be involved. Each one of us has got their own responsibility. Salvation is a personal matter that calls for you as an individual. In as much as there is collective effort to be put together, but judgment comes on us as individuals. Why are you sleeping in a position of responsibility? Maybe let's change and turn things around. This coming week, as you go through this coming week, why don't you just put it upon yourself that you're going to be telling someone somewhere that there is a God that is coming? Why don't you exonerate yourself from all these things and you stand up and you tell the world that, look, there is a Christ that is coming. Let them say no, that is their problem. Christ never said that you convert the whole world. He said, and the gospel of the kingdom will be preached into all the world as a witness, so that the end will come. But as long as this church continues to be in a deep slumber like we are in, I'm telling you, we are not going anywhere. We are not going to make it. Sad to say, it is us who are going to fail to make it to eternity. I've told you this story before, I think. I don't know, but there might be some people who don't know the story. This story happened in India. This man, he had a bent back. He was born and brought up with a bent back. And he had nothing to do. He was a disabled man who could not be employed anyway. The only other thing he could do is to beg for money. But he came from a family where he always had enough food. So he did not see the need to be begging always. And this man, Rajendra, every morning, because he had nothing to do, he would take a walk in that position. And down the street in Ludia, towards the United Nations building, there's a tall building that goes into the sky, I think a very good 100 meters plus into the sky. A tall image that is there. And he would always come every day and he would look at that image for some time, go home and come again the following day. Like I said to you, he had nothing to do, but there's one thing he could do. He could take a walk and while up time, but come there and struggle to look at this tall image. He got so close to the image, for him to see at the top, he had to struggle to bend his back, which he did not have because he was a disabled man. And 15 years down the line, some oncologists say they are surprised that he is walking straight. He managed to straighten his back for one simple reason. He spent his time looking at that image from a man that was bent forward. Every time, the more he wanted to look at the image, and gradually the bones continued to respond until finally he could stand up tall. He was out in the newspapers all over everywhere. Scientists were amazed. They wanted to understand what was happening. And one man said one thing: it is because he continued to look. And I want to say, if you want to change yourself and be what you're supposed to, continue to look. You might not be able to look at Christ. You can look at Christ in the literature that you read all the time. You might not be able to see a Christ that you can deal with, but you'll be able to continuously get that meditation that enables you to straighten up and begin to understand what it is and walk yourself away from sleeping in a position of responsibility. Beloved, I'm telling you this one thing, that it is doable. If Rajendra could be able to straighten his back when he was born like that and eventually stood up straight, why did he stand up straight? He continued to behold the man. And it was Pilate who said, behold the man. And I say to you, behold the man.
Amen.